not, we will see. Yeah, so anyway, we can start. Welcome. Very happy to meet you, and very happy to debate again with all of you. So, as I just said, we'll try today to have some new syllogism in order to get familiar with those answers, yeah, from the defender, and try also to keep in mind the comparisons, yeah, equivalent, contradictory, 3P, 4P, and so on. Then after we can play with all those topics like existent, impermanent, definition, definiendum, and so on, yeah. So things like this, slowly, step by step. As you noticed, we go very slowly, step by step. We try to do like this, yeah? And if you have questions, please dare to ask them. They can be useful for many people as well, yeah? Okay. So then we can start. Okay, so it follows that you know the 4 types of comparisons.
Accept.
Yes, which are
Equivalent, contradictory, 3P or 4P.
yes, very good, fantastic. Okay, and it follows that you know the 3 main members of the syllogism.
Accept.
Yes, proceed, please.
Subject, predicate, and reason.
Yes, fantastic. And there is a 4th one, the example.
Example.
So yes, this one I don't mention so much. I should mention it because in some debates, like you know, in some classical texts, they would say, oh, there is no valid reason to prove this and that because there is no concordant example. Yeah, like Lam Rim would say so, for instance. Okay, so, but usually speaking, in order for a syllogism to be valid, it has to be the 3 modes. Yeah, you remember those 3 modes? Those 3 criteria? Yes. Okay.
The 3 criteria
Yes.
isn't it like the reason not established, no probation, and the
Yeah.
one that is like, this is nonsense. I don't know. I don't remember the third one.
It is linked with that in one sense. Yeah, we could say that in order for a reason to be a valid reason or for a syllogism to be valid, the reason has to be the 3 modes. Yeah, the property of the subject, the perversion and the counter perversion. Yeah, the forward perversion and the counter perversion. It has to be all those 3. Yeah. Okay. So yes, we cannot go into much details about that, but some would give as a definition of a valid reason that which has the 3 modes. Yeah, but Yonzin Purbochak would say, yes, sometimes we could find a reason which has the 3 modes, but which is not the 3 modes. Yeah, so because Yonzin Purbochak would use 2 contexts, but in one and the same context, the reason in order to be valid has to be the 3 modes. It has to be the property of the subject. It has to fit with the subject. It has to be pervaded by the predicate. So there is pervasion, and it has to be pervaded by the absence of the opposite of the pervasion of the predicate. Yeah. Okay. So very good. So I could say, for instance, it follows that the subject bats are birds because they fly in the sky. What would you say? Bats are birds because they fly in the sky. Would you say accept? The reason is not established. No perversion.
No probation.
No perversion. Yes, very good. Yes. So keep in mind that when we say no perversion, it implies that the reason is established. Yeah. Yeah. When we say no perversion, it implies that the reason is established. Yeah. So yes, bats fly in the sky. So the reason is established. But no perversion. Yeah. It's not because it flies in the sky that it has to be a bird. Yeah. Everyone is okay with that? Hello, Palaviji. Yes. Okay. So, okay. So it follows that if it flies in the sky, it's not necessarily a bird.
Except
Except, very good. For instance, what could fly in the sky without being a bird?
a butterfly.
Yes, a butterfly. Yes, or a plane, or yeah, there are so many examples. Yeah.
But it should have been if it flies in the sky and is not a bat.
Yes. If it flies in the sky and is not a bat, it can be a bird, it can be a plane, it can be a butterfly, and so on. Yeah. It can be a bee. Okay. Very good. Fantastic. So you all know perfectly the syllogism, yeah? So we'll try to find some more exercises, yeah? Okay. So, okay. You could say it follows that a subject, a flower is blue because it is not red.
No pervasion.
Ah, no perversion. Okay. Who would say accept? Nobody, nobody would say accept. Who would say the reason is not established? The subject, Maria, you would say the reason is not established. Okay. So it follows that the subject flower is red. No. So it follows that the subject, the flower, is not red. Yes. So the reason is established. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The subject flower is not red. Yeah. Okay. We could even say the subject, a red flower, is not red.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to say. Because it can be a mixed thing. It's not a definition of a flower, punct. It's not a definition of a flower.
Yes, because when we say the flower in general, it is not a color anyway, so it cannot be red. Yeah, even any specific flower cannot be the color red.
Exactly.
Okay, we've seen that many times. Yeah, okay, very good. So yes, the reason is established. Yeah, the subject flower is not red. So if it is not red, does it have to be blue? No, no perversion. Yes. If it's not red, it doesn't have to be blue. Yeah, so
And-
no pervasion. It's not because it is not red that it has to be pervaded by being blue. Yeah.
And then the counter pervasion would be if it is not blue, it has to be red.
The counter perversion would be if it is not blue, it has to be not red. So it doesn't work as well. Yeah. Yeah, because if it is not blue, it cannot be red anyway. Yeah. Because if it is not red, it would mean it has to be red. Yeah.
Repeat it again, please.
Yeah,
If it is not blue,
blue, it is not red. Yeah, the negation of the predicate has to
Okay.
imply the negation of the reason. Yeah.
Why can't we say it simpler? I mean, why can't we say it if if it is not blue, it is not red? Why do we have to use the double negations?
Yes, it's just one way to assert that. So yes, if it is blue, it doesn't have to be red. Yeah. So
But it's better to use the double negations.
yes, then it's more clear for you what means the counter pervasion. Yeah. So the counter pervasion means if we negate the predicate, we have to negate the reason. Yeah. Yeah, we could say that the opposite of the negation of the predicate has to pervade the reason. Yeah. Okay, because the reason has to be the three modes anyway. It has to be the property of the subject. The reason has to be the pervasion, and the reason has to be the counter pervasion as well. Yeah? Okay, very good. Fantastic. So, yes, if we say it follows that the subject flower is blue because it is not red, no perversion. Yeah. Okay. So if we say now it follows that the subject a tree is a sentient being because it is alive. Because a green tree.
I think if there was a chance to ask for a definition, for example, I would ask for a definition of alive.
Ah, yes. What means to be alive? Yeah. So it's not so easy, yeah. It's not so easy. There is some explanation in the Abhidharma Kosha from Acharya Vasubandhu, yeah, and the Chinzu, the how do you say, Chinjambeyang commentary. Yeah, you have that in English. Adornment of the Abhidharma. Yeah. Okay, so they explain, you know, the non-associated compositional factors, the impermanent phenomena, which are not form and they are not cognition. And they explain the, you know, what means life. Yeah, life. So they would say it's a kind of non-associated compositional factors, which is supporting heat in one sense. They would say so. But what about hell being in
Cold
a
water
cold?
fish.
Yeah. What about what? Sorry.
Cold water fish.
Ah, yes, exactly. Or, you know, even like a lizard or a snake, they don't have really heat in their body, yeah? They use the heat from the outside, yeah?
So
So,
in this way, you know, these definitions are changing because of science, or just because observation?
yes, because of the observation, we would say. Maybe in the higher Abhidharma, yeah, maybe from Arya Asanga, they explain that it's the connection between the body and the mind. So in that case, it's even more appropriate, yeah, that non-associated compositional factor, which links, we could say, a body and a mind in one sense. So I have to double check exactly where it is. But I remember that Venerable Gengen at Nalanda explained that. Yeah. Okay, so if we say that
Tree
a tree
is a
is
sentient being because it is alive, and the
yes,
reason not established according to what we just said, connection
exactly.
with body and mind.
Yes, exactly. In that case, the reason is not established. Yeah, if we say that it's you know, the life force is a non-associated compositional factor which allows the movement of energy. You know, sometimes they could explain that as well. So in that case, we could say, yes, a tree is alive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a living thing. It's not a living being.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Why? I'm sorry. Why?
Ah, why is it not a living being? Who has an idea?
Because you say that it is not a living being. Well,
Yes.
you said it to me, it has to do with the definition, because we have three definitions: supports heat, connects body and mind, and allows movement of energy. So if we consider allows movement of energy, then you know there is a reason the tree
Yes,
is alive.
exactly.
Yes, and a tree. So the example is a maple tree. You know, you take maple sap because as spring comes, the heat comes into the body of the tree. The tree sends all the sap up, and that's how we were able to get maple rubber. So there is a life force, there is a mind, and there is movement.
Ah, is there a mind? Yes,
I mean, there is an intelligence, there is a cognition that heat has
Hmm.
come and action
Okay.
has to be taken.
That's
The
interesting.
tree
Yes.
has the tree has a cognition.
No,
Ah,
that's what
no.
that's what I wanted to say. Sentient being has to have emotions and a response and cognitive response, and that the tree doesn't have the level of cognitive response to be included in a sentient being.
But
Yeah.
you know, if you there are experiments that have been done that if you say angry words at a plant, the plant will die or shrink or get sick. These are things that have been done. So why would we say they don't have?
I agree
Yes.
with you, and I also believe that talking to plants is actually helpful, but it's not under the definition of sentient being because there is no emotional reaction to fear or emotional reaction to, so like fear or like you know, all those you know, maras we are talking about in
It seems that I mean, if you watch a Netflix documentary and things on these plants and trees and roots, that they send messages, there is a disease coming from some other place, and the older roots send almost medicine to the younger trees to know. Sunflowers turn to the sun. You know, if they don't find the sun, they turn to each other to find energy, joy.
Then,
Yes.
then, big question. Then, in the syllogism, because this discussion is about, you know, the definition, what is to be life. We're not entering into the syllogism yet. So it's important for the debaters to understand the definitions. That's why
Yes.
you have said before that, I mean, I'm just thinking to myself that if the contenders do not have the same definition, then the debate goes in different ways. So I think right now we have the richness of discussing among ourselves what the definitions is, got to a consensus, and then start with a syllogism.
Exactly. That's why this discussion is on play. And I was sure that we would have that kind of discussion because, yes, there are some, you know, scientific discoveries, you know, about the way that plants can process information. They can process information and they can share information. Yeah? So if you plug your computer to the printer, there is some kind of sharing of information. Yeah? Does it mean that both are sentient? No perversion. Yeah, it's not because there is a information sharing that they have to be sentient. Yeah, so yes, in Africa, for instance, when some trees are attacked in one sense by the deers, you know, they want to eat the leaves. So those trees, they send some information through the air, and the other trees, they are not attacked yet, but still they produce some defense, chemical defense in the in their, you know, in their blood in one sense, and they will not be attacked by those deers. Yeah, so it's just a kind of survival information sharing. Yeah, it's the evolution spoke about by Darwin. Yeah, you know, the strongest are the fittest, and the fittest to survive. It's just a kind of evolution law, but it's not a proof that they have a mind.
But then is the mind sentient? Is the mind just passing information? The mind may not be sentient either, according to this. If we take it to this level, the mind
Yes,
is processing information and is sharing it with another object, like the
yes,
hand, like the legs.
yeah.
So it's not sentient.
Yes, we could say that, you know, the definition of mind or cognition, I'm sure many of you already know it. The definition of mind is, c'est un
Clear
moment
and knowing.
It's clear.
clear and knowing. Yes, already said by a few of you. Yes, clear and knowing. Yeah, that makes all the difference. Yeah, that's why in one sutra, what is that sutra? It is quoted in the Science and Philosophy in Indian Buddhist classics, and it's also in the Abhidharmakosha commentary. I think it's Dharmadina, Bhikshuni Dharmadina Sutra, I'm not sure. But here in that sutra, the Buddha says, then it is without mind like a tree. So the Buddha himself says a tree is without any mind. And that's quite coherent because, you know, the Buddha tried to be non-violent. Yeah. So we should not kill any sentient being. Yeah. We should not kill. We can eat without killing any sentient being. We can be vegetarian, for instance. So if the Buddha said so, it means that plants are not sentient. Otherwise, he would not have advised to be vegetarian. Yeah, that would mean that if you kill an animal or a plant, that's the same, but it's not the same. Yeah, so that's why we can be non-violent when we eat. Yes, and also the Buddha, he's a Buddha because he cultivated bodhicitta previously, and bodhicitta has to be universal. If the Buddha would not have cultivated compassion with regard to trees, then his bodhicitta would have been partial, and it would not be the cause of Buddhahood. So that's
Wow.
that's why the Buddha's compassion is universal. Yeah, it's oriented towards any sentient being. Yeah. So we can have many discussions about that. It was just a kind of a sample about that. But yes, we could say it follows that a tree is a sentient being because it is alive, no perversion. Yeah. Okay, but still we can have more discussions about that.
No probation, then we are given for granted that trees are alive.
Yes, the living trees are alive.
Due to movement and energy.
Exactly. Yes, if we accept that kind of definition of life force, because if we accept the definition, which is this non-associated compositional factor, which links a body and a mind, then we would have a problem. Exactly.
Okay.
Very good. Fantastic. Okay.
How interesting that what you said is great. It's amazing that, you know, the Buddha has universal bodhicitta, and he said that, you know, trees do not have a mind. Is this, you know, this thought popped in my mind. Is this manifest phenomena or knowledge, or you know, slightly hidden or very hidden? The fact that trees do not have mind, or the fact that trees are not alive.
Yes, trees
Or
are.
are not mind, do not have mind, actually.
Yes, in that case, we could say it's yes, hidden phenomenon, because we need to infer this absence. So we need to infer. So we need to think a lot. We need to think why the Buddha said so, because he is omniscient. Okay, so is omniscience myth or reality? Yes, so we have to check our mind on the present time, you know, the mental consciousness. What is the very nature of that mind? It is clear and knowing. So it means that if the conditions are appropriate, then that mind can know without any obstruction. So yeah, we need to think a lot in order to infer the fact that, for instance, an apple can be a living thing, but is not a living being. Yeah. There can be consciousness in a tree. If, for instance, you have a preta, you know, a ghost living in that tree, but it would not be the consciousness of that tree. This tree would be linked with a mind, but that mind belongs to the preta, doesn't belong to the tree.
So, but with you, what you said before, then as a good perfect syllogism, I don't know if it's perfect. Tree is a living thing because it's a living phenomena because it's alive. That would work.
Yes, we could say yes. We could say the subject tree is a living thing because it has life force. Then that would be a syllogism. Yeah. Yeah.
How
Okay.
wonderful.
Very good. Very good. So yes, how do we know that things exist, and how do we know that non-existent are non-existent? That's very important, you know, because that's why in that I wanted to share that picture. That yes, this one. This one is so important, yeah. Because according to Buddhist philosophy, yeah, we can be liberated by knowledge and not just belief, even if that belief is according to reality. Yeah, belief is a very good step, but it's not enough. Yeah, we have to know. We have to know why non-existent doesn't exist. Yeah, because why are we meeting today? Why are we studying together? Why? What is the purpose of that? Because there is nothing good on TV?
To know who we are, and why we exist.
Yes, to know, exactly, yeah, to cultivate some kind of knowledge. And knowledge, what is the opposite of knowledge?
Ignorance.
Ignorance, exactly. And why are we suffering since beginningless times? Because of ignorance. Ignorance is believing that something, that the non-existent exists. That inherent self, that inherent good and bad, inherent, suffering, inherent happiness, and so on exist, but they are totally non-existent. So we have to
They're not.
understand.
Are they
So,
totally non-existent, or are they dependent origination? Are they just there? So does anything exist? Something must be existing on the basis of which we are constantly creating things that are impermanent.
yes, we could say, like, for instance, when we have an affliction, like, for instance, anger, pride, attachment, and so on, we believe that the object of anger, the object of pride, the object of attachment exists, but the object of observation exists, but the object as it is grasped at by those afflictions is totally non-existent. There is no inherent pleasure. There is pleasure, but there is no inherent pleasure. There is no inherent person. There is someone who is suffering, but there is no inherent someone who is inherently suffering. That's so important to understand that. Yeah. So that's why we don't have, we need to be clear about the object of negation. For instance, if we study after the Madhyamaka, for instance, from Mahayana Nagarjuna, we should not do as some people sometimes they when they give some conferences, they say, oh, nothing exists. I heard that some people would have said that recently in Tibet House, yeah, during a very nice conference between epistemology and ontology. And Venerable Damdullah said during a class that someone would say that there is no existence, on the conventional level. So it's not at all the point of view of Aryana Gajuna. So we have to know why we exist, why we as inherently persons don't exist. Yeah, so what is the object of negation? Then when it is done, then the rest becomes easier, it seems. But the most important thing is to know what doesn't exist and what exists. So yes, the person who is studying, who is in samsara, who wants nirvana, who wants to become a Buddha for the sake of all the beings, this person exists, but never existed inherently. Absolutely, yeah. So that's why we have to understand those points. So here, of course, in the Sotrantika following reasoning, for them, inherent person exists. For the non-prasangika, everything exists inherently, yes, conventionally, and even ultimately, except for the Swatantrika. Yes, so for the non-prasangika tenets, if it exists conventionally, it has to exist inherently. Otherwise, it would mean that it doesn't exist at all. So here, in the context of the Sotrantika following reasoning, the non-self here, the selflessness, is not the same as the emptiness in the Madhyamaka or in the Prasangika Madhyamaka. Yeah? It's a very gross level of selflessness. Yeah? For them, for the Sotrantika, that's the top of the top of the selflessness of the person. And for the Mahayanist schools, it is very gross. Yeah. Okay. So that's we could say the broadest category, selflessness or non-self here. Yeah. the broadest category, because if it exists or not, it has to be empty of any self of the person. Yeah. Okay, so they would say so in the texts, they would say, if it exists or not, it has to be empty of any self. Yeah. Okay, very good. So now that for the non-existent, of course, you already know Horn of the Rabbit, blue unicorn, square circle. You already know many non-existent. Okay. So, of course, the main non-existent that we have to understand that it doesn't exist is the self of the person, of course, yeah, for the Sotrantika. Okay, very good. So now we have existent also. Existent, of course, that's the it's more directly linked to us. Existent. So existent, do you know the definition of existent? We will see slowly those definitions of those phenomena which are equivalent with existent, established base, and so on. We will see that later. Yeah? But for now, the definition of existent is
that which is established by a valid perception.
yes, very good, Shalila. We could say that which is observed by a valid cognition. Yeah. Yes, it is good as well. That which is established by a valid cognition is the definition of established base. It is equivalent with existent. Yeah. So yes, existent is defined as I already sent it the WhatsApp, yeah, the file, you know, then you can double check with those definitions. Okay, so the definition of existent is observed by a valid cognition. Okay, so it follows that the subject, the number of the atoms in my cup is non-existent because it is not observed by my valid cognition. Oh, it follows that the subject, the number of the atoms in my cup is non-existent because it is not observed by my valid cognition. Accept, reason is not established, no perversion.
Pervasion.
No perversion.
And I think
Yeah.
reason is not established because you, oh, because, okay, the reason is that you don't know the number of atoms in the,
I confirm.
okay, that is true then. The reason is established, you don't know.
Yes, I
So then,
confirm.
okay, no pervasion.
No perversion. Yes, the reason is established, but no perversion. Yes, Maria?
What about the number infinite?
Ah, the number infinite.
Because in the end, it's an infinite number of atoms, one can say.
Yes, and would you say that there is an infinite number of atoms in my cup?
If you cannot measure it, you know, and it's a big number, it's a good approximation to say infinite number. And
Yeah.
because, again, it's I'm just asking for clarification because infinite exists, but again, valid cognition, it's one of those hidden phenomena like the number. So
Yes.
so that's why I'm asking. The infinite is kind of a description of the hidden phenomena that could describe a number of existent.
Yes. Because yes, usually speaking, we could say that the number of the atoms in my cup is finite. Yeah, there is a definitive number, a definite number of those atoms. Of course, we will not ask you to count them, even with a microscope.
But there must be a mathematical formula because it is a limited, it is a limitation, a
Yes.
limited form. So if we can
Yes.
measure the distance from here to moon, then we can measure the,
Yes,
yeah.
that would be possible, exactly. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So in this syllogism of that you said atoms in my cup do not exist because there's
Yeah,
no
the
valid
number,
cognition of
the
those
number,
atoms.
yes, the number of the atoms. Yeah. I
Okay,
think
the number
I
of
could
the
have a valid
atoms.
cognition of the atoms. I could have an inferential valid cognition of the atoms, of the existence.
Okay,
The number
inference.
itself. Yeah, so yes, the number, we could say it is finite. It's not infinite because the cup itself is, you know, a very limited object, a very limited object. So we could say, yes, it is finite, it is not infinite. But do we know, can we know infinite? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we could double check that later. Yeah. Yes, the syllogism would be, it follows that the subject, the number of the atoms in my cup is non-existent because it is not observed by my valid cognition.
Mm, mm, mm.
But it's still finite. We know,
Yes,
and we
exactly.
still have the possibility if we want to find the number. So in that respect, it is in the current state of our knowledge that we don't know the number, but that is not a limitation, it's our limitation,
Mm.
and not the objects of the subject's limitation. So how do we
Mhm.
distinguish between our perception and the true value and, you know, syllogism? So I guess the syllogism is the thinking that where we connect, but
Mhm.
how we can distinguish the syllogism of the individual perception
Mhm.
versus you know, the actual you know, subject, because somebody may know. It's
Mhm. Yes, exactly. That's exactly the point. Very good. Yeah, very good,
So
Maria.
can something
So,
be non-existent for me but existent for someone else?
yeah, so that's why if it exists for someone else, it exists. It's not a non-existent. Yes, that's what the meaning of existent is observed by valid cognition in general. It doesn't mean that it has to be by my valid cognition. Otherwise, the the limitation of the objects of knowledge would be very big if it is my
But
knowledge.
then we have to question valid cognition. Whose cognition is valid, more
Yes,
valid
exactly.
Mm, mm, mm,
the
mm.
validity of, you know, then
Exactly.
whoever has more power it becomes more valid.
Yes. So that's why we had, I don't know how many sessions on valid cognition during the break,
Yes,
maybe
not
10 or 12,
observed
I don't remember.
cognition.
But yeah, we had so many classes about that because it's so important. What means valid cognition? Exactly as we said before, you know, ontology, what means what exists, and how we know that it exists. Yeah? The epistemological side. Yeah, that's very important to question that. Yes. So we could say that, yes, I don't have any valid cognition of the number of the atoms in my cup. It doesn't mean that there is no valid cognition of that in general. Yeah. So no perversion. It's not because I don't know something that it doesn't exist.
Mm.
Mm,
Yes.
mhm.
Very good. So someone has to know that. So someone good in mathematics could formulate something like, okay, the number of the atoms in the cup is like this because the size is like this, and this material is that metal and so on with the size of the atoms and so on. Then you could know that with valid cognition, yeah. And also one equivalent with existent is object of comprehension of an omniscient cognition, of an omniscient mind. Nam Kieng Shelja. Yeah, so if it is known by a Buddha, it exists. So
So
even if I don't know anything, the Buddha knows everything.
so
Yes, please.
earlier you had said, you know, the computer sends information to the printer and information is changing. Now AI is given far more information. All these books can be given to AI, everything,
Yes.
and fed into a super processing computer
Yes.
that so will we say, oh, here's this, you know, valid, now this computer has valid cognition because it knows every book.
Ah, so it follows that you can posit the definition of valid cognition.
Can I say something on that?
Realized by the six senses and six senses and the mind.
Okay. Yes, it's something, yes, there is realization in that. in that definition. Yeah, so we'll keep that. Yes.
Can I say what indeed there is mental capacity in AI, processing information capacity, but there is no true cognition with respect to understanding, empathizing, and feeling. So the kind of the cognitive cycle that goes, even though we use it as cognitive, the difference is that humans can interpret and emotionalize and process in multiple ways, because don't forget there is this also mental part. So there are the five, so the, you know, hearing, speaking, and so on, but there's also the mental, emotional part, which is not there in the AI. And I know it because I'm working with it every day.
Oh, let me tell you, Maria, that about emotional cognition of AI, because my son is a teenager, is that nowadays they use AI for emotional support. Like they build a friend, and the problem is that ChatGPT responds as a friend, sometimes responds with and this is like gossip about ChatGPT, and that's the problem, because young people believe that the emotions that AI is showing are of a person.
So,
My
but then
son is almost 16, so I know exactly. Sorry.
but then let
Is-
me come back to, then it isn't our own emotions like a non-existent projected, like, why are we talking about AI then? Shouldn't we be saying our own emotions are completely projected and not non-existent?
Because when we speak about intelligence, yeah, it doesn't mean intelligence in French. You know, when we say intelligent, it means clever. Yeah, someone who is quite clever. But intelligence, like in CIA, means information. So it's just a gathering of information, and just a selective gathering of information. That's all of that. Yeah, so that's why when there is even emotional support, it means that the machine has lots of information about the emotions and makes a selection. And that's all. The machine itself doesn't feel anything. It's not a valid cognition because it's not a cognition. Yeah, it's not even a mental, because mental means, manas in Sanskrit means mind. Yeah, so it has to be, or yi in Tibetan, it means, yeah, it has to be cognitive. It has to feel something. It has to be associated with the feeling mental factor, yeah?
And
Can
also,
I say something?
sorry, I just wanted to add, I think also because valid has the connotation of non-mistaken, which means non-mistaken with respect to the appearance of the object. And I don't think AI has an appearance of any object.
Yes.
It only knows the many information.
Yes, so it would mean that there is no inferential valid cognition because it is mistaken with regard to its appearing object.
Sorry?
If we say that a valid cognition has to be non-mistaken with regard to its appearing object, then it would mean that inferential valid cognition could not be valid.
Then the definition is just non-mistaken cognition.
No,
Okay, I need to go back to my mind and mental factor.
So, but yes, challenge is okay about is true about the fact that the valid cognition has to be unmistaken with regard to its object of engagement, yeah, object of comprehension. It can be mistaken with regard to its appearing object because it can be conceptual, valid cognition. It can be inferential, yeah. But still, as long as it is not mistaken with regard to its object of engagement, then it can be valid. It's not necessarily valid. Yeah, it's not because cognition is not mistaken with regard to its object of engagement that it has to be valid. For instance, correct assumption. Yeah, it is correct. It is not deceptive, but still it is not valid. Yeah? Okay, so the definition of a valid cognition would be, according to the Sotrantika, a cognition which is new and incontrovertible. A new and incontrovertible cognition. So it has to be a cognitive event. It has to be clear and knowing. Everybody agrees? Wow. Yes, Maria.
I'm sorry, but I need one more clarification. If we do not have this cognitive part and we are like AI, that means we don't have samsara because we are able to control the information. We have control of the processing of the information and we can, handle the information, which is not what we have. We actually are mental people with emotions. So it's difficult to break the cycle, and that's why we are in this path. So on the other side, on the existent, there is no self. There is only self, the non-existence, the non-self. So where are the boundaries between valid cognition and existent versus samsara and non-existent? Let me tell you this way: if we think like that, we don't exist, or at least as a inherent object, we don't exist. You understand what I'm saying? We are on the non-existent.
Sorry.
Because we do have cognitive, right, that ties us to our samsara, and we do have the non-self part
Yes.
because of that, which means if we have the non-self, we are not existent.
Ah, okay. So here, that's why we have to check also what means self when we negate self.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you don't exist, then I'm speaking to nobody.
I think we don't exist in the form that in the permanent and impermanent form. The permanent, that is, yeah, okay, that's where I'm kind of now, because our permanent form exists, our non-permanent non-self form doesn't exist. But there is, again, I'm trying to find the difference.
So we will try to decipher all those things. Yeah, we will check, that in this chart we have selfless, okay, then non-existent and existent, then we exist. Yeah, as Isolina says, if you doubt that you exist, then you need to pinch yourself. Yeah, and you say, oh, okay, ouch.
What has been very, very important to me is to bring myself to the Sautantrika. Like
Yes.
when studying debate, understanding it only from the Sautantrika, because if not, I go to, the Madhyamika that is too complicated.
Yes, then after we can make them debate together, yeah, Madhyamaka and Sautrantika. Because yes, if we are clear about what means, for instance, a specifically characterized phenomenon, yes, Swalakshana, then we know exactly the object of negation of Aryanagarbhuna. Yeah, so that's why it's so important first to be sure that we know exactly what means Sautrantika, following reasoning. Yeah? Okay, very good. Yes, so we exist, yeah, and according to the
But
yes.
Maria's question is very valid. I mean,
Yeah.
I would like to hear.
What makes the difference between existent and non-existent? Or I'm
No,
not really sure.
Maria, maybe
I
can
got the
you pose
question.
it again, because I thought it was very important.
So there are three definitions: self and non-self, existent and non-existent, and cognitive, cognition, versus non-cognition, or cognitive reasoning. So cognitive reasoning, non-cognitive. So like the AI would be a non-cognitive reasoning versus cognitive reasoning would be the human reasoning.
Yes.
So those three terms overlap, but how exactly they intersect?
Yes. Okay, yes. So reasoning is necessarily cognitive. Yeah, we cannot sit at a table, can have a valid reason or anything. Yeah. So we could say any person can have some reasoning, can draw any reasoning. Yeah, we can say so. So it has to be cognitive. Yeah, because when the mind is reasoning, the person is reasoning. Okay. So we could say that the mind can be reasoning and non-reasoning. Yeah, like for instance, the I consciousness is never reasoning; it's non-conceptual, and reasoning has to be conceptual. Yeah, so the I consciousness, for instance, is not reasoning at all. And we could say that any Yes, any phenomenon which is not a cognition is empty of reasoning, we could say. Only cognition can have a reasoning, we could say. And of course, the person itself is one substance with the reasoning, so the person is reasoning because the mind is reasoning. Okay, then after we said existent and non-existent. Yeah. So we could say that if it exists, it has to be known by any valid cognition. Not necessarily my valid cognition, not necessarily yours, but any valid cognition. As long as it is observed by any valid cognition, it has to exist. And if it is never observed by valid cognition, then it cannot exist. Yeah. But anyway, if it exists or not, it is selfless. Because for instance, horn of the rabbit doesn't exist, so it cannot be a self, and it cannot have a self. Yes. And for the Sotrantika, any phenomenon is the selflessness of the person. Because the Sotrantika, like the Vaibhashika, they only accept the selflessness of the person. So even a table is the selflessness of the person. Because it is not an object of apprehension of a self-sufficient substantial self. So because there is no self-sufficient substantial self, there is no object of apprehension of a self-sufficient substantial self. So even that object is a selflessness of the person. I'm not sure if it answers your questions.
It answers. I need to, the last part, the last definition, the selflessness is
Yes.
something that I need to more absorb
Yes.
and
Exactly. Yes, we
understand better.
will, and we will enter
Thank
into that when we will try to explain the non-associated compositional factors. They are necessarily imputed existence. So they are necessarily not substantial existence. So we will have to check that. Yeah. Very
Did
good.
Thank you, and
they-
apologies for taking so much time. Apologies. Yeah.
No, it's very important. Very important. Thank you so much. Really.
Very good questions. Can I
Yeah.
ask, did the South Africa do that because they just wanted to simplify that? Hey, why are we talking about phenomena when we're already just talking about the self and everything else is just projection of the self and created and composite? So let's not talk about, like, if as long as we establish that the self-substantial reality is non-existent, then it negates all objects outside. Like, is that why they did it?
In one sense, they would say, like, for instance, okay, like, for instance, yeah, we could say that if, for instance, can we say that, I don't know, you know, if, like Santa Claus, okay, please put the children outside. Yeah. Do you agree that the subject Santa Claus, it doesn't exist as a person?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So it follows that if there is no Santa Claus, there is no house that belongs to Santa Claus.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the same process. If there is no self-sufficiently substantial self, there is no object of use or object of apprehension of that self-sufficient substantial self. So in that regard, my cup is the selflessness of the person because my cup doesn't belong to a self-sufficient substantial self. That's just the point that they make.
Right.
So that's why if it exists or not, it is the selfless. And if it is the selfless, it is necessarily the selflessness of the person for them. Because
Right.
they don't accept the selflessness of phenomena. So even a phenomenon which is not a person is the selflessness of the person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's almost it's a redundant, like it feels redundant. I don't know why, but I know Mahayana or Madhyamaka went on to say selflessness of phenomena, selflessness of person, and we had to establish all of that. But we could have stayed
Yes.
simply within saying if there's selflessness of person, then why are we talking about selflessness of phenomena?
Ah, yes, but even, you know, even for the Swatantrika Madhyamaka, for instance, they would say that if we speak of the emptiness of self-sufficient substantial self, that that belongs to the selflessness of the person. So if we speak of that object of negation, even a cup is the selflessness of the person for the Swatantrika. And for them, the subtle object of negation would be true existence. And that subtle object of negation is fitting with the selflessness of phenomena. So if we say the absence of true existence of the cup, it will be the selflessness of phenomena of the cup. And if we speak about the absence of true existence of the person, it's the selflessness of phenomena of the person.
Oh.
That's very tricky.
Oh, so they differentiated and they put, like, they made the person a phenomena.
In one sense, a person is a phenomenon because it exists, but you know, it's just because for the Swatantrika, the selflessness of phenomena is more subtle than the selflessness of the person. So if we speak of the subtle object of negation, then it's necessarily the selflessness of phenomena, even if it belongs to the person. So please drop it for now. Drop it for now. Just forget what I said. Otherwise, it's more confusing. Yes, but here for the Sotrantika, there is no selflessness of phenomena. So if it is a selflessness, it's necessarily the selflessness of persons. Yes, but it doesn't mean that the self doesn't exist at all, because self, person, and I, they are equivalent. Dak, Kanzak, and La in Tibetan, they are equivalent. So there is a self which is imputedly existent. There is a person which is imputedly existent, but there is no person which is substantial existent. Yeah, so that's what what is negated is a self-sufficient substantial person. Yeah, okay. But
Are we
the person,
constantly being imputed differently? Like, as our mind changes, is it constantly changing? That's why it's impermanent, this imputed self.
yes, because for the Sotrantika, there are, you know, different pairs, like substantial existent, imputed existent, but those substantial existent, imputed existent can be read on different levels. Yeah, if we mean substantial existent means impermanent, then permanent phenomena are imputed existent. But if we read that on another level, like it can be ascertained by valid cognition without the need to ascertain something else, then the person is imputedly existent, but is not permanent. So that's why we have to be careful on the context when we speak of substantial existent, imputed existent. The person is imputedly existent because it's an NACP. It's a non-associated compensation factor. So it appears to the mind when something else appears to the mind. So that's why it is an imputed existent. But because it is impermanent, it is also a substantial existent on the first level. It's an imputed existent, which is a substantial existent because it is impermanent. Okay.
May I just make a clarification for my small brain? There are two parts of self, the current, in the path versus the, longitudinal, the traveling part, the continuously growing and knowing and learning. So
Yes.
the imputive is the way I understand it is the existence at this current moment of how we actually cognitively understand and perceive the world, because it's not even in our higher cognition, we are still learning, we are still growing, right? We are not Buddhas, hopefully one day, but not there. And no, but in the subjective, really, and dependent horizon type of thing, it is the one is a moment versus is the whole path. So it's an existence as a journey, as a global path. Is this the difference between kind of not in time and space, but more on the perception of understanding that the moment is a change, a part of the impermanence, right? So it is a point in the impermanent continuum.
Yes, and this continuum itself is impermanent. Eh?
Right, continues and changes, and we don't know how it is exactly,
Yes.
because it's in the,
Yeah.
lots of things happening at the same time, right?
Yes, yes.
Fully
So the person of this life and the person which is imputed independence on different lifetimes, they are one substance, because when you have this person now, you have this person which is a part of that continuum,
right.
but both are impermanent anyway. The person of this life is impermanent, and the person which is imputed independence of many lifetimes is impermanent as well. Yeah, it has to be impermanent because it is
Yeah.
non-associated compositional factor.
Right.
And it has to be one substance with the aggregates, as Arya Nagarjuna would say in the 18th chapter, yeah, in the Madhyamaka Shastra. If the person were to be one with the aggregates, then it would disappear after one lifetime.
Yeah.
And if the person would be inherently different from the aggregates, so it means a different entity with the aggregates, he would not have the characteristics of the aggregates, which are impermanent. So the person would be permanent, but it's not the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sorry to speak again about Arya Nagarjuna. But yeah, that's the most important master for those debates about the person. But if we keep the Sotrantika level, yes, we could say that anyway, the person has to be impermanent either. Anyway, there is no, except maybe the Samitiya, the Pudgala Vadin, who would say that there is some person, we don't know if it is permanent or impermanent. So some philosophers in the Buddhist tradition would accept a kind of self-sufficient, substantial self, which is neither permanent nor impermanent, something like this. But otherwise, for any Buddhist tenet, the person has to be impermanent. Anyway, yeah. So that's very important, because we can keep on growing. If we say, oh, I'm impermanent, even if my level of knowledge is very low right now, I can grow. I can keep on, yeah. Never give up. That's so important. Okay. Okay. So more about the syllogism, yeah. Okay. So it follows that the subject, the person is impermanent because it exists. Accept, reason is not established, no perversion, or even the perversion is opposite.
No, what's it called? Because existence can be both permanent and impermanent.
Yes, exactly. So, yes, the reason is established, the person exists. As His Holiness says, if you doubt you exist, please pinch, pinch your skin. So we exist. Yes, we exist because we are, it follows that you exist because?
I'm, observed by cognitive reasoning.
Yes, by valid cognition.
Valid
Very
cognition,
good.
yes.
Yes, so important. So important. Yeah. Do we exist? Yes. Very important. So important. Venerable Dandil many times would say so. Yeah, that's the very first door to understand the middle way. Do we exist? Yes, that's very important. Yeah. Okay, so it follows you. If you are observed by valid cognition, you necessarily exist.
Yes. Accept.
Yes, very good. So the reason is established. The person is impermanent because it exists. The reason is established. The person exists. Yeah. Is there any entailment? Is there any perversion? If it exists, is it necessarily impermanent?
No, it can be permanent as well.
Yes, it can be permanent. Yeah, we have to study that. Yeah, that in the Buddhist tradition, the Buddha never said everything is impermanent. Yes, he would have, maybe he would have said everything, like every functioning thing is impermanent. Yes, but not everything. Not all phenomena are impermanent. Yeah. Okay. So if it exists, it's not necessarily impermanent. Accept. it's not necessarily impermanent because
They are permanent.
they are permanent phenomena. Yes, exactly. For instance,
Dharma.
dharma. Yes, dharma. Phenomenon is permanent. Yes, phenomenon, existent, and so on. Yeah. So we will see why it is permanent. We will see that later. Yeah? We will speak about organic rice and non-organic rice. Okay. Very good. So
Correct.
now if we say if we say it follows that the subject form exists because it is impermanent. It follows that the subject form exists because it is impermanent.
No provision.
No provision, faut pas l'avait dit. Okay.
Not sufficient.
Not sufficient.
Reason not established.
Reason is not
Yeah, because
okay. So my syllogism is totally wrong.
No, accept.
Accept. Wow, we'll have some fights. Some non-violent fight, of course. Okay. So, okay, so now Chaviji, you try to be the challenger. Yes, you have two defenders. I guess Maria and Palavila would say both that the reason is not established, or one would say no perversion.
You said
I
there
read
is
syllogism.
there is a form that is considered permanent. There's one form
Oh, that's
that's
interesting. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Okay, so let's try to check, for instance, first, the reason is not established, yeah, Chavila? What would you say to the defender?
there is a form that is permanent. So that is the reason. So it cannot be form be
Yeah.
defined as a reason for defining
Okay.
something as
So it means that for Maria, no perversion, yeah? Okay, no perversion. But for Palavila, the reason is not established, yeah? So as you know, we have to check first if the reason is established or not. So that's why we start with Palavila, yeah?
So it follows that form is not impermanent.
Why?
So it follows that form is impermanent.
correct. Accept.
Oh, except
Then the reason is
The
established.
reason is established.
Well, yeah, okay. Accept.
That's very easy to convince, Palaviji.
It's
They
just
are
my
not-
brain's not working fast enough. I think I can find something. It's just not for right now.
Okay, so now that we see now that the reason is established, everyone is clear with that. Form is impermanent, yeah? Okay, so now the perversion, so it tends to reply also to Maria. Because if Maria finds some forms that are not impermanent, then Palavila, Chaviji, you would ask for an illustration, no?
Okay, so can you give me an example of permanent?
Permanent form.
Permanent form.
Permanent form.
Can I dare say, you said the example, I don't remember it now. There's one example of permanent form.
I think it was vows, the vows we take.
No, it's not vows, it's not dharma, it's not vows, it was something else. Those are not forms. I don't know if I can say Buddha, but it was something else in that level.
Yeah, because the vows, they are non-revelatory forms. So they are forms. They are considered as impermanent anyway. even if for the Sotrantika, they would say it's a phenomenon source. It is only a form which can be the object of apprehension of a mental consciousness. So they would say anyway that it has to be a kind of form, something impermanent. The vows are impermanent anyway. But yes, if we say something which is form,
It's like
so
ghosts or things like that. Things like
Space? What about space?
space.
space.
Right. Space was it. Right. Thank you.
Okay, so space. So it depends.
So
Yes,
I would like
please.
to. So the mental consciousness, which goes from one life to another life, and although the mental consciousness is keep on constantly in flux and changing, but a particular subtle consciousness which goes till the Buddhahood, can it be considered a mental continuum which is permanent?
So yes, if we say that if it is permanent, it cannot transform and become the omniscient mind.
So the subtle consciousness which goes from one life to another,
Yes.
but the the gross consciousness are constantly in change. But
Yes.
that subtle thing which goes towards the Buddhahood, the omniscient mind. So other than that, we can't actually say that any form will be permanent because of the aggregates which are constantly in change. So
Yes.
a particular subtle consciousness which goes from one life to another, and which has karmic imprints, and I think maybe that would be a source, permanent, not
So
permanent subtle consciousness.
if we say that it is permanent, it means that it exists and it is not changing. Yeah, that's the meaning of permanent. It is static. But still, yeah, our mind now, I guess, at least my mind, I don't know yours, but my mind is the mind of a sentient being, an ordinary being. And one day, I hope it will become the omniscient mind. So it means that it has to change, it has to grow, it has to proliferate. That's why we call it the proliferating Buddha nature, because it can be developed, it can increase infinitely, we could say. And when
Yes.
it is awakened, then it's very different. My mind now is very limited, but the mind of a Buddha is unlimited. So it means that there is some change in between, no?
But
The subtle mind I'm talking about is subtle mind, which is kind
Yes.
of unchanging, and which is right now hindered with all the mental fabrications and afflictions. And the subtle
Yes.
mind has been obscured by all the. Actually, it's a Buddha nature. What I'm trying to say is the Buddha nature, which is
Yes.
inherent in us,
I think he's trying to
which is
say
dormant.
the Buddha nature which we are having right now at this moment.
Yes,
Yes.
well, kind of like that.
Yes,
Like
this
we
Because
say no, we are already Buddhas.
that would be nice.
but so
because there is some
Yeah.
concept in this, I think in Gelug tradition or Vajrayana, they are saying we have two. One is the subtle wind and subtle consciousness, which moves
Yes.
from one life to another, and that
Yes.
subtle mind rides on the subtle wind and it carries on. Something like that I read somewhere.
Yes,
I'm not
exactly.
sure.
Yeah, so that's the suppressed Buddha nature according to Tantra, according to the
Yeah.
highest, the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, that the surplused mind, which is one substance with the surplused wind, wind energy. Yes, and that mind has to be impermanent because that mind
Okay.
will become the jnana dharmakaya, the wisdom of the dharmakaya. So it will grow and it will transform, it will be purified and so on. So that's why it has to transform. But you are right about that point. According to the Nyingma tradition, for instance, His Holiness the Dalai Lama would say so in Nampe Taichue Kundu. Yeah, and I don't know if it exists in English, but in French it means 100 elephants on a on a blade of grass. 100 elephants. No, I think there is another title. Yeah, kindness, clarity, and insight in English. Kindness, clarity, and insight. That's the translation of the Nangpe Tachukundu in Tibetan. And His Holiness says that according to the Nyingma tradition, we say that the continuum of mind, that subtlest mind, is uncompounded. It means that there is no first moment of that mind.
Yes.
That's why they say it is
Beginningless.
compounded, beginningless, exactly.
Beginningless.
It means it is uncompounded in the meaning that there is no very first moment of that mind. It doesn't mean that it is permanent.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
another.
Mm.
Very good.
So,
So it is
so the
permanent.
mind which we are having after 2-3 lifetimes is totally different from this mind,
Yes.
like totally
Yes,
different.
because it's like, and we could say like a year, a year is a continuum, which is impermanent, and each very day is very different from the previous one. So we could say the continuum of this surplus mind is impermanent, and each moment of that mind is different from the previous one. It is produced by the previous one, so it is an effect, so it is impermanent.
Mm.
Very good. Fantastic. Yes. So, yes, please.
Mula said about the Buddha nature. Would Buddha nature be an example of a permanent form?
Of permanent form, no. We could say,
Permanent mind, maybe.
we could say that one part of the Buddha nature, according to the Madhyamaka, one part of the Buddha nature can be permanent. The natural Buddha nature, the emptiness of our mind, it is permanent, but it is not form. It is emptiness. It is a mere negation. Yeah.
But
Okay.
what about space that Pallavi said? And I think was also before by Tushita mentioned.
Okay. Space. Okay, but space is not form. Yeah, uncompounded space, for instance, is permanent. And according to the Vaibhashika, according to what we read last time in the Abhidharma Kosha, that compounded space is a kind of non-associated compositional factor. Yeah, it has the quality of light and darkness. We could say like the space, we could say like the sky, not the space, but the sky. Yeah, the sky is blue today, or the sky is gray today, and so on. The sky is, is misty today, and so on. We can say the sky is changing in one sense. So why not? We could say that that type of compounded space is a non-associated compositional factor. But as you know, the definition of a non-associated compositional factor, it's an impermanent phenomenon, which is not form and not cognition.
But I found it. It's the left side of the space and the right side of the space, which are then permanent.
Okay. So we could say
Because then it's
yeah. Okay. So what do you mean by space in that case? The definition of space? Who has the definition?
as you said it before, this is the the compositional entity.
Okay.
But there is a left side, which is always a left side, irrespective of how it is, and the right side, which is irrespective of its components. So it's the name and the properties versus, which is an entity and the definition of a variable existent form.
Yes.
But it is permanent from the point that it's the characterization left is like blue and red as colors. They are not forms, but they are colors. They are permanent, irrespective of what.
Okay, so that's why we need to delve into those points. What means permanent? What means color, and so on? What means impermanent? Yeah, that's so important. Yeah. So yes, some characteristics can remain for a long time. Yeah. Like for instance, we could say like on the planet Earth, there is a convention that says that USA is in the West and we could say Tibet is in the East. Yeah. But if we look to the Earth when like this upside down, then Tibet becomes the West and USA becomes the East. Yeah, so that's the convention who says that, yes, America is always on the west and Tibet is always on the east. Yes, and so the characteristic remains like this. It doesn't mean that it is permanent. Yes, something that remains and a phenomenon which is permanent, it's very different.
I agree, and Tibet and America exist now in these centuries, you know, before they didn't exist, and in the future may not also exist. But space is something that is permanent.
Yes, space, I agree. Space is permanent. So if it is permanent, it cannot be form, because form is equivalent with matter, and space is not matter.
By space, you mean the sky or like the vacuum? Because it already has
No, the
air,
space
nitrogen.
continuum. No, the continuum, the space continuum, where we, you know.
Space has matter. Okay. That's what I think you're pointing towards, that space has matter. It has air. It can and can not have air. So that becomes a vacuum. But space allows change to happen, allows impermanence. But
Yes,
space is permanent.
yes,
It
exactly.
allows out also existence, because without
Yeah.
space, there is no existence.
Oh, so it follows that without space, there is no mind.
So it's kind of like a awareness, like the awareness in which all the conditions arise and goes
Yes.
out.
Yes, we could
The
say,
awareness
yeah.
in
Yes.
which all the conditions arise and go and arise and go. So like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, we could say that all material phenomena exist within space. Yes. That
space, you mean to say the awareness or the material space outside the earth? Like what?
Yes, when we speak
Yes.
about space, it's the mere negation of obstructive contact. Yeah, that's the definition we could say of space is tore karpecha. Yeah, this factor of mere negation of obstructive contact. That's a mere negation, and a mere negation cannot change.
Can we say that
empty.
as an awareness? Awareness.
So awareness is it is not a mere negation of obstructive contact. It's something more. Yeah, it is clear and knowing. So yes,
Oh
in
no.
some textbooks, like for instance, Kunken Jemon would give as a definition of mind that which is not matter, bemme, say Shinrikpa. Yes, so something which is clear and knowing and is not matter. But yes, mind is not matter, but that's not its main, we could say, characteristic. We would say that its main characteristic is to know. Yeah, because something that is not matter, there are so many things like time, a day, an hour, a person is not matter. So there are so many phenomena which are not matter. Yeah, they are not material. But still, mind is much more than just non-material. It is knowing. That's the only thing in the universe that can know phenomena. That's beautiful. Yeah. So awareness means cognition. Yeah, means clear and knowing. Yeah. Okay, so space is a mere emptiness. When we speak about the uncompounded space, it is a mere absence of obstructive contact, and it's spreading everywhere. So any material phenomenon exists within space, but time doesn't exist within space. It exists within time, and mind as well. Mind exists within time, but not within space. that's fantastic.
We're definitely starting, we're talking about two different types of space. We're talking
Yeah.
about this mere negation of space. Then everybody's talking about the universe, like planets and stuff. That's not what we're talking about, right? Space, we're talking about there's a space that's permanent. We're not talking about space and planets.
Yes, exactly. It's not exactly the same. Exactly.
No. Yeah, it's complete. We're talking about a completely different concept. So it's not
exactly.
like there's a left, right, up, down. We're talking about a mere negation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
It's not the
space.
space
Okay.
from Einstein. You know, Einstein said that we could, you know, deform. You know, you could use space, and you could, you know, but it's not the same, you know, because you cannot transform space according to that kind of philosophy. Yeah, space, which is a mere negation, cannot have a form, but for Einstein, it can have a form. Yeah, so that's how he explains, you know, the gravitation and so on. But according to Buddhism, according to Buddhism in the sutra context, space is necessarily permanent because it's a mere negation. Yeah, for the space particles, according to the Sri Kalachakra Tantra, it would be different, I guess. But according to the sutra context, we could say space is just a mere negation. And another type of space, like the compounded space, would be a non-associated compositional factor. So anyway, it's not form. If it is permanent, it's not form. And if it is an NACP, a non-associated composition factor, it is necessarily not form either.
So there is no permanent
Yeah.
form.
There is no permanent form at all. You know, even the form of a Sambhogakaya, you know, the beautiful mandala and deities in the mandalas and so on, they exist as long as samsara will exist. So they will remain as long as samsara will remain. It doesn't mean that they are permanent. Okay, wow. So if I repeat my syllogism, it follows that the subject form exists because it is impermanent. Do you still disagree?
Can I apologize, really apologize, but for example, the human form.
Yes.
Hands and so on. This is something that we take from samsara to samsara in all, you know, levels of existence. And
even in the formless realm?
In the formless realm, we also still consider human form. It's not.
Really?
Yes, because we talk. If you hear the formless form, they say they cut their hands, and so they feel the pain as if they cut their hands. And so if you in the Lam Rim says, you know, they suffer like somebody's cutting their hands or something like that. So there is no form, but still there is form. The notion of form.
Okay. Yeah, we could say that in the formless realm, yeah, the name Arupya Dhatu means there is no form at all. Yeah, there is just the potency of form, but not form at all. And that's why it's very subtle.
Yes, but still, even there, that doesn't exist in one part, that doesn't mean in the other part doesn't mean that form, the human form, is not permanent.
Yes, yes, we could say that anyway, there is no human form in the formless realm because there are only devas in the formless realms. Yeah, the human beings, they belong only to the desire realm. Yeah, so in the formless realms, there are only devas, yeah, like in the form realm as well. Yeah. Okay, so yes, we can say that human beings, they have always a similar form. We could say in that Jambudvipa, in that on that planet, because according to the Buddhist cosmology, there are human beings in Uttarakuru, Aparagodhanya, Jambudvipa, and Purvavideha. Yeah, so all the, you know, the main, we could say the main parts of that galaxy, we could say, they are human beings, and they are very tall in the Uttarakuru. They are like giants. So it's not the same form as we have. So it follows that it's not permanent. It follows that form is necessarily impermanent because it is matter, and matter is made of particles that always change, always moment by moment they are changing. Yeah, everybody agrees?
Christophe, what about the non-revelatory form? It's not matter, right? So was it put in that the label was put just for the sake of Buddhist practice or something else?
Yes, the form, the vows for the Vaibhashika and the Prasangika, they are forms. And for the non-Vaibhashika and non-Prasangika, they are not forms. we could say they are not fully characterized forms. Yeah, they are put in the category of phenomenon source. Yeah, like you know, in the Abhidharma Kosha, for instance, Acharya Vasubandhu is Vaibhashika. Then he changes his mind in the Abhidharma Kosha Bhashya, in his auto commentary. And in that commentary, he says, he would say that forms which are not demonstrable and which are not obstructive are included among the phenomenon sources. So those forms which are only observed by mental consciousnesses. So the vows that would be like this, you need to be clairvoyant to see that kind of form within brackets in the continuum of someone. Yeah. So it is like, for instance, if you dream about a blue sky, is it form, that blue sky? Yeah, it is form only for the mental consciousness. That's why it is called Chökikeche, a phenomenon source. Yeah. It is a kind of form only for the mental consciousness. And the vows are like this as well. Yeah.
So if there is any dependency, there is no permanency.
Sorry?
If there is any dependency, depend on, there is no permanency.
It depends. For instance, uncompounded space depends on its parts. Yeah, the directions, but still it is not impermanent.
But it's not form.
Yes, exactly. It's not form. If it is form, it has to be produced. It has to be an effect. It has to be impermanent. It has to change moment by moment. Yeah.
Ah, so form is dependent arising, a phenomenon.
Yes, exactly. But we could say that for the Buddhist philosophy, everything is a dependent arising. Even space. So that's why which level are we using in order to understand dependent arising? It can be, you know, the very gross level, we could say prapya samutpada, we could say the gathering of the causes and conditions. This is the literal meaning of dependent arising, yeah, dependent production, yeah. And there is another meaning is apeksha samutpada, the gathering of parts. And compounded space is like this. It's just depending on its parts, but still it is permanent. So it is not dependently produced, but it is dependently existent. And for the prasangika, yes, sorry. Yes, please.
You said that space is dependently originated. So if it's dependently origination, so it should not have this self lack of intrinsic self, lack of intrinsic permanent intrinsic self, because whichever is dependently originated should not have a intrinsic self.
Exactly.
It should have. So it should follow the rule of impermanence because of change, because whichever has dependently originated has to have in change. So it should be told as impermanent, right?
Yes, so that's how we could, you know, think if we put aside the different meanings of dependent origination, yeah, the pratitya samutpada, yeah, that very specific name can mean literally dependent origination in the meaning of dependently caused, yeah, the dependent production. So in that case, if we accept only that very gross level of dependent production, it would mean that permanent phenomena are not dependent existent. So they have an inherent existence, but it's not the case. It's not the case. So that's why pratitya samutpada has different meanings. It can mean also the gathering of parts. Yeah, so the space, if you put aside all the parts, all the directions, it doesn't exist anymore. So it means that that permanent phenomenon needs its parts in order to exist. Yeah. And for the prasangika, the dependent designation is even more subtle. Yeah? Okay, wow, fantastic questions. So that's why when we hear, you know, dependent origination, if we understand only causes and effect, that would be difficult to accept. Because even, you know, for the Sotrantika, for instance, our school here now, the Sotrantika following reasoning, for them, if it is a dependent origination, it has to inherently exist. The dependent origination.
So you mean to say that the phenomena which are dependently arising can be permanent also, like space?
Yes, generally speaking, exactly.
Okay.
So that's why dependent origination doesn't mean only dependence on causes and conditions. That's very important, yeah, because for the prasangika, the dependent origination discards inherent existence. But for the sotrantika, dependent originations proves inherent existence. That's why they say an ultimate truth is ultimately able to perform a function. So that's why Lama Tsongkhapa in the Tendel Chopa would say that only for the true Madhyamika, the dependent origination discards inherent existence. But for the Sotrantika, it proves inherent existence. That's beautiful. Okay.
And I know we
yes,
are,
please.
but I think that is also the reason for permanence, because being able to adjust and adapt in every new reality, whatever it's every new real. So in order to be able to adjust and always to dependent origination, that's why it allows you to be permanent. It doesn't, in human terms, it doesn't break because it's able to adjust and accommodate the needs and facts and what is happening every moment.
Yes, we have to keep in mind that in order to exist, any phenomenon has to depend on something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So permanent phenomena, they depend on causes and conditions, and they depend on their parts as well. Yeah. But for the permanent phenomena, they don't depend on causes and conditions, so they have to depend on parts only. And for the prasangika, everything is a dependent designation anyway. Yeah.
But then the form to exist has to change and adapt. But anyway, I stop here because it will,
In order to exist, it has to change. So for you, the syllogism is right. If we say the form, it follows that the subject form is impermanent because it exists. For you, you would accept. But usually we accept the opposite. The subject form exists because it is impermanent. That's a perfect syllogism. But if we say the subject form is impermanent because it exists, then no perversion. It's not because it exists that it has to be impermanent.
No, it's because it is able to adjust, to change, because you said form changes, that's why it's not permanent. But I want to say is because it's able to adjust, to change, becomes permanent.
Yes.
It's able to adapt. It's like,
Yes.
It mentioned before, like, evolution, human evolution, right?
Yes, we could say so.
Keep continuing and be permanent because we are able to adjust to conditions.
Yes, like permanent phenomena, they exist, yes, but they are not changing at all, yeah.
But forms can change and still. Okay, sorry. I know it's more than time. I will take it as a homework.
Yes, please, yes. Don't keep everything I say as, as the truth, please. Keep that as a hypothesis of work, yeah? Just like, okay, what is that information and how can I find some, some ways to contradict that? That's so important, yeah? So, because the Buddha himself said so, so of course, like very tiny disciples like me, they have to encourage you to do the same. Yeah, of course, that's even more important. Thank you so much. It was very nice to speak about those points because during the previous classes, we had no opportunity to do so. Yeah, to speak about selflessness, what it means according to that school and so on. So of course, not 1 hour and a half would be enough to discuss about that, but still we have some things, some tracks to follow or not. And for next time, we will delve into the definitions of existent and object and so on, try to decipher all those definitions, why there are so many different definitions with regard to which perspective and so on. Yeah, we'll try to do like this. Thank you so much, and I will send some exercises for next time as well. My great pleasure, for the sake of all the beings, for the good health and long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and for the all the conflicts disappear as quick as possible, and for the self-determination of the people, like in Tibet, and for any country that need freedom, and for all this, for the sake of all the beings. Thank you so much. It was very, very pleasant. Take care and see you soon. Thank you, Chaviji, for your help.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Christophe.